So I made a video updating about my personal PCOS journey, but I wanted to do a follow-up really quickly on the one that I shared last week about how I see certain people kind of ruining their own progress. If you haven't seen my last video, go back and watch it. I talk a lot about my own personal stress management, and as I was editing that video, I realized that I kind of start the video by saying I was diagnosed with PCOS, and that's true, that's a fact, that's what happened, but something that bothers me a ton about the health community is that a lot of the big voices in that community lean on their diagnosis, and it might sound like so woo to some people. I'm not even gonna get into like law of attraction or anything, because whatever, right? But there is a certain mentality and there are certain stress hormones you are releasing every time you focus on the fact that you are diagnosed with something and you start to identify with it. This is a very dangerous thing that can happen, and it happens to a lot of people. And I was starting to do it a little bit, but I've seen it happen so much with other people, including friends of mine, that I didn't want to fall into that trap. And I wanted to just do this follow-up to that video because I think it's so important that if you get a diagnosis, you don't treat that like it's the end-all be-all. You treat it as a starting point and you work from there. Obviously, science matters. A lot of my videos on here are very heavily researched, and I want to make sure that I'm providing good, valuable, accurate information for you guys. But when we dwell too long on a diagnosis, it kind of shoots us in the foot for ever finding a cure, really. Because it turns into part of your story. It's like, oh, I can't eat this because I have PCOS. I can't do this exercise because of my asthma. I can't whatever. Sometimes that is true at certain points, absolutely. I've already talked about how I changed my diet to try and aid my body's healing journey. But I also mentioned in the last video how since I've gotten my cycle back, and it has been regular for about a year now, I have strayed away from that strict diet because it's a supplement. Your diet changes all the time. It changes seasonally. Look at just the produce in the grocery store. There's only certain times of year when you can buy pumpkins because they're only really in season in the fall. You know, in America, sometimes that's not true. Sometimes we have everything on the shelves all at once. And that's cool, you know, that's like a feat of farming. But at the same time, there are certain foods that you probably crave more in the winter than you do in the summer. When was the last time you wanted a hot chicken soup during the middle of a hot summer? You know? And I say that because when you are working to heal yourself, my acupuncture story is a perfect example. I really needed to go to acupuncture every week for the first 6 weeks to make sure that the cycle kind of came back. I then really needed to go every other week, and I would miss my cycle if I skipped a session. But now, I haven't had a session since March. I've had 2 periods, one for April, one for May. And that clearly is how the body learns to adapt based on the tools you're using. But if I were still telling myself, no, crap, I'm missing acupuncture, I can't do it, that stress that I am causing probably would make me need to go back to acupuncture and probably would delay my period. The months that I have been overly stressed, either from work or personal stuff, whatever, those are the months that I've missed my period, sometimes even with acupuncture. So I just wanted to reiterate that just because you have a diagnosis with something doesn't mean you aren't still evolving, and your body can relearn things, and it might need some crutches at first, but it will totally be able to run again. So at least in my experience with these types of illnesses, I mentioned asthma. Obviously I don't have asthma. I have a lot of friends that have asthma. I know a lot of athletes that have asthma. The friends who have it don't necessarily work out very much, but clearly athletes exercise all the time. How does one person with asthma not be able to do, how are they not able to do 20 jumping jacks, but this athlete can play a 90-minute soccer game? The body is extremely adaptable, so don't use your diagnoses as crutches. Do the research, find who the experts in that specific illness or chronic disease are, and find what tools work, but don't rely on them to the point where you kind of shoot yourself in the foot. Just like my example of if I were freaking out right now about how acupuncture facilities aren't open, I probably would have caused so much stress that my period would have been delayed, and then that's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You never know when to take the training wheels off until you just take them off and see if it works. So probably a bad analogy. Always take care of yourself, but the point is your diagnosis is not, it's not static. I'll leave it at that. Continue working to grow, continue healing yourself and treating yourself well, and find those modalities that work, but don't become so reliant on them that you stress yourself out when you miss one. We're human, it's gonna happen. I hope that was clear and that helped. Thank you guys for watching. I don't think I even said my name in the beginning of this video. I'm Allison, aka FlabsToFitness, and you can hit subscribe. I do a lot of different videos on this channel as well as on my Instagram and all that stuff. So thank you for watching. I hope this was useful, and I'll be back soon.